How's your day, sir?
Going very well so far.
The distinguished journalist Phillip Knightley is preparing for another television appearance. The media is always seeking his opinion.
Hello and welcome to Epilogue, Press TV's book review show. I'm Derek Conway. In this programme we shall review a new book called Envoys to the Arab World, edited by Paul Tempest.
In this London studio, he's joined a high-powered panel discussing the history of Britain's Middle East diplomacy.
This is all a bit sort of public school boy, the sort of outings, daring do, and tales of great adventure.
It's a pleasant exchange, but Knightley swings quickly onto a topic he knows better than anyone: the spy business.
I'd like to ask Paul if he could clear up the spy story about Newcastle. I mean, George Blake went there, notorious spy. There are others I've heard of, but why did it have that reputation?
It had that nickname, School for Spies, didn't it? I thought you might, maybe that's volume 3.
The Arab I've ever met knows about the Madrasat al-Jawasis, the School for Spies. Well, in a nutshell.
As the session ends, the host has nothing but praise for Knightley.
Philip, I think, as well as being a superb writer, it comes with his intellect, but he's also, I think, a very courageous man. I mean, some of his journalistic endeavours were a great challenge, and challenged the system quite a lot. So whilst now he's a sort of a doyen of the British press, but in his days he's clocked up some very serious exposés, which is what I presume being a journalist is all about, really. So I think he's a man greatly admired in this country, and rightly so.
Now 80 years old, Knightley is in constant demand. This morning he's meeting with TV producer Leon Lercache. He is producing a 6-part series with Philip as a consultant. Lercache's series has a lot to do with the spy game.
For want of a better word, a kind of a John le Carré type series. And obviously Philip's expertise in this arena is nobody in the whole world has better expertise than him. What I like about the way that Philip writes is he even when he's talking about his own opinions, he tries to balance them out. He's sceptical about his own opinions.
He can also be quite funny, can't he?
Yeah, you know, I find that to be really extraordinary, actually. When you read his books, they're not like historical documents. They're very personalized, but you still walk away knowing all the details about the CIA and the KGB in a sort of user-friendly way, you know.
Knightley is a prolific author. You've written 11 books.
11 books.
And a lot of them have been produced in various languages?
Yes, you know, from Russian.
Let's go through them. What's that book?
I think this is a Russian edition.
Of?
Philby.
Philby. His book on master spy Kim Philby is considered a classic. How he came to write it says much about the author's tenacity. Why was the Philby story such a big story?
It was a big story because, first of all, nobody knew what it was all about.
Philby may well have been the greatest spy in history. He was a senior British agent who for 30 years was actually working for the Russians. He delivered his handlers the West's deepest secrets. Philby eventually fled to Moscow, and Knightley revealed his story. Then he wrote to the master spy for 25 years, seeking an interview. Finally, this telex arrived. So once you got the okay, from him over you went?
Over I shot. I said, Mr. Philby? He said, yes, come in. Would you like a big drink, or shall we get straight into the story? And I said, I think both. And we did, and we spent the next 8 days together.
The interview was a world scoop. and the book soon followed. Then came decades of writing about the spy game. No wonder he's sought after as a book reviewer and interviewee. This morning he's poring over a new work about Britain's spy agencies. He doesn't like what he sees and contacts the book editor of the Sunday Times.
Yeah, hello Andrew. I'm underimpressed by the book. No, it's not awful, but it's repetitious, nothing new. No, a synthesis of everything that's ever been written about MI5 and MI6 over the years. I don't understand what the fuss is about.
And woe betide an author who doesn't check the facts.
Looking for a quick way to check its accuracy, I looked up Blake and the index. And he says that Blake wrote a book, it was called No Other Choice, and no publisher, no British publisher was the slightest bit interested. Well, it was not only published by Jonathan Cape, it was serialised in the bloody Sunday Times. I mean, it's got a 415-page book.
It's a big book, isn't it?
The actual review I've got to deliver by next Tuesday.
Oh.
So I'm reading away like a big-ass bird.
And then write your article for the Indian magazine?
Yeah, it's all go, go, go.
And you're 80 years of age?
That's got nothing to do with it. It's irrelevant.
Knightley has always followed his own instincts. His inner sanctum bears witness to a career spent exposing secrets and lies. Sunday Review.
Now, this was a war crimes thing. It began in Adelaide when the Australian War Crimes Tribunal accused a Ukrainian, Polyukovich, of war crimes, and the federal government sent a whole war crimes team to investigate.
This is in the former Soviet Union, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I noticed a colour photo, this one here.
Dumps of Death, that was a Russian story.
What was that about?
Thousands of tons of chemical weapons dumped into the Baltic at the end of the war.
These are all your files. How many years would we go back here, do you think?
Oh, well, 40 years in journalism.
It's all there, is it?
Maybe 50. Some of my first stories ever written.
His journalism has brought many accolades, including an honorary doctorate from Sydney University and an Order of Australia. From the 1950s to the 70s, Knightley worked with a dynamic team at Britain's Sunday Times, led by editor Harold Evans.
I mean, Evans used to encourage us to think big, you know, in themes, rather than just reacting to the news of the day.
For years they campaigned against Distillers, the company that distributed thalidomide, a drug that caused deformities in children.
Thalidomide was one of the biggest stories that the Sunday Times ever tackled.
The Sunday Times fought hard in the courts to publish their investigation, and there was tremendous commercial pressure as well. Distillers also spent several £100,000 per year advertising in the paper. The Sunday Times advertising manager was up in arms.
And here we were attacking a subsidiary company for marketing a drug that caused deformities among children. And Evans told him to go and get lost. What happened today? Every newspaper proprietor, well, I can't think of anyone who wouldn't take into account the fact that you might alienate your advertisers.
The paper's coverage was instrumental in the victims receiving more than £20 million in compensation.
It changed all our lives. I mean, anybody who took part in the campaign feel today that they took part in something that was worthwhile.
Knightley's brilliant career had humble beginnings on a small newspaper in Lismore, in northern New South Wales.
And it was very clear to me that the newspaper was part of the community.
He remembers how a short article he wrote about a pothole became an early lesson in the power of journalism.
The next day, the hole in the street was repaired. And I thought, my God, if it works on this scale, why shouldn't it work internationally? That general principle of public service journalism stood me in good stead. I've tried to practice public service journalism all my life.
In 1954, at the age of 24, he joined the London office of the Sydney Daily Mirror.
It was Keystone House. It was a press agency, photographic, and we occupied the second floor.
But it would be another 8 years before he landed a job in Fleet Street.
The Street of Adventure, they call it.
Not anymore.
Street of Adventure. 200 Gray's Inn Road.
How long did you work in this building?
20 years.
20 years. Along with the Times and the Sunday Times, all the big newspapers made Fleet Street their home.
The whole street used to shake at night with the rumble of the presses. You could stand here and you'd feel the vibration.
But now they have moved away.
It was the Telegraph, now shut and locked. Daily Express building, known as the Black Ruby Anchor, because of all the black glass. Now Japanese bank.
Knightley laments the loss of the Fleet Street culture.
It's a disaster. Fleet Street, old-fashioned Fleet Street, with all the papers in one street, 9 out of 10, had the advantage that journalists drank together, ate together, same paper, different papers, worked together.
And now he's not simply being nostalgic. He says in those days, whistleblowers knew exactly where to go to leak their information.
The main thing that's gone is the ability of somebody who had a story to tell of finding a sympathetic ear and knowing it was in one place.
And here's the proof. This is a cartoon that celebrates Knightley's withering attack on the Vesties, cattle barons who ran a vast business empire.
Saying to the butcher, never mind your best end of neck, who's your tax accountant?
Philip got the story from a man who walked in off the street.
And I was suddenly onto a marvellous story about this gigantic family who had successfully avoided paying any justified amount of income tax since 1921.
His expose changed Britain's tax laws. But where would a whistleblower go today?
If you ask people where their newspaper office is, the Daily Mail or the Daily Express or some of the great newspapers of yesteryear, they wouldn't be able to tell you.
But he's not giving up on his daily news fix.
So what paper do we get, Philip?
We get The Guardian.
And why is that? Why The Guardian?
Its political opinions agree with mine.
Right.
You like to have them confirmed.
Okay.
Your prejudice is confirmed.
Right. What, slightly left of centre, eh?
Yeah. No, wildly left of centre.
In the age of Google, blogging and Twitter, there's much talk about the end of newspapers. But Knightley says they still have a future.
I think that if money devoted to serious journalism with analysis, interestingly presented by good writers, can still sell newspapers.
And this icon of journalism intends to be troubling the powers that be for a long time yet. You're 80 years of age, you're still turning out columns and articles for newspapers. Any thoughts of retiring?
None at all.
That's a dirty word?
Yes, journalists don't retire. Writers don't retire. I'm still hoping for that, other big story. There's always one just around the corner.